looking into governor, chief minister, and council of ministers. The state executive, you must have studied about union executive in union administration in your previous semesters. As you all know, the union executive consists of president, vice president, prime minister, council of ministers, and attorney general of India. In the same way, the state machinery, in the state machinery, the state executive consists of governor, chief minister, council of ministers, and advocate general of state. Today and tomorrow, we'll be looking into governor, chief minister, and council of ministers in depth. And so, what does this advocate general of state do? The responsibility of advocate general of state is to defend state or drag any other state or central government to the Supreme Court in case of any interstate disputes or center state disputes or any kind of issues. In such cases, this advocate general of state, he defends the state. So the Constitution of India, it describes India as a union of states. The Constitution of India describes India as a union of states. Article 1 of the Constitution, it states that Bharat is a union of states. Thus, the territory of India can be classified into various states and union territories. Presently, there are 29 states and 7 union territories in India. And the Constitution prescribed for the formation of union government for the purpose of administering the affairs of the country. It provided for the state government for supervising the affairs of the state administration. Article 152 to 212 in Part 6 of the Indian Constitution, it pointed out the matters relating to the state governments. India has adopted parliamentary democracy in federal setup. The president is the elected head of the union, while the governor is the nominated head of the state. The president is elected because, as you must have studied in the union administration, that he is elected by the elected members of the both the houses of the parliament and the state legislative assemblies and etc. It's an indirect election, whereas the governor of the state, he is nominated by the president. And this governor is nothing but he is a president equivalent at the state level. And Article 153 of the Constitution, it provides that there shall be a governor for each state. However, the Constitutional Amendment Act 1956, it makes it possible to appoint the person as a governor for 2 or more states. Previously, each state had one governor, but this Constitutional Amendment Act of 1956, it made it possible to appoint one person as governor for 2 or more states. A governor is the chief executive head of the state. But like the President of India is a nominal executive head. The real authority lies in the chief minister at the state and the prime minister at the center. The governor also acts as an agent of the central government. And therefore, the office of governor has dual role. Article 153, 167, they deal with the matters relating to the office appointment, qualifications of governor, his removal, his powers and functions of the state governor. Appointment and conditions. Article 155 stipulates that the governor of a state shall be appointed by the President of India by a warrant under his hand and seal. And Article 156 says that the governor shall hold office during the pleasure of the president. Subject to this provision, he shall hold the office for a term of 5 years from the date on which he assumes the office. So basically, his term is 5 years. However, he continues to hold the office till the new governor assumes his office. Since he holds the office during the pleasure of the president, no process of impeachment or any other method of removal is prescribed by the Constitution. The Constitution lays down the following two kinds of qualifications for the appointment of a person as a governor. Firstly, he should be a citizen of India and he should have completed the age of 35 years. These are the qualifications for being a governor. Additionally, two connections have also been developed in this regard for over the years. Firstly, he should be an outsider and he should not belong to the same state where he is appointed so that he will be free from the local politics. So he should be an outsider, firstly. And second, while appointing the governor, the president is required to consent the chief minister of the state concerned so that there will be a smooth functioning of constitutional machinery between governor and the chief minister and his council of ministers at the state, so that a smooth functioning will be maintained in between them. However, both of these connections, they have been violated in few cases. The Constitution also lays down the following conditions for governor's office. Firstly, he should not be member of either house of the parliament or of a state legislature. He shouldn't be any member of the parliament or state legislature. And he should not have any other office of profit. And his emoluments, allowances, and privileges, they shall be determined by the Parliament of India, not by the state government. His emoluments, allowances, they are determined by the Parliament of India. And his emoluments and allowances shall be detrimental to the tenure of his office. Article 159 of Indian Constitution says that the oath of the office to a governor is administered by the Chief Justice of the concerned state high court. And in case of his absence, the senior most judge of the will court will be available. Now let's look into powers and functions of the governor. You must have studied the powers of the president when you have studied the union administration. The powers and functions of the governor are also similar to that of the president, but at the state level. The powers exercised by the governor can be divided under two broad headings. One, those powers which he exercises with the aid and advice of the chief minister and his council of ministers. And secondly, those powers which he exercises in his discretion. So basically, the governor has two kinds of powers. One, which he exercises with the aid and advice of the chief minister and his council of ministers. And secondly, powers which he exercises in his discretion. Discretion means when the governor acts on his own or takes his own decision without the aid and advice of the chief minister and the council of minister. It will be his independent decision. That is called as the discretionary powers. And the governor possesses executive, legislative, financial, and judicial powers, which are equivalent to the President of India. However, like the President of India, he doesn't have diplomatic powers or military or emergency powers. So the powers and functions of the governor can be explained under these following headings: executive powers, legislative powers, financial powers, judicial powers, and discretionary powers. Now let's look into these powers in detail. Executive powers. Executive powers are those powers related to the running of the government and ensuring that laws are followed and policies are implemented. In a state, these powers belong to the governor, who is the executive head of the state. I said you in the beginning that the state executive consists of governor, chief minister, council of ministers, and advocate general of the state. And this governor is the executive head of the state, just like the president at the national level. According to the Indian Constitution, Article 154 states that the executive powers of the state shall be vested in the governor and shall be exercised by him either directly or through his officers subordinates to him. Subordinate officers means in this context it consists of all the ministers and chief ministers. So now let's look into these powers, executive powers. Firstly, all the executive actions of the government of state are formally taken in his name. And the governor is required to frame rules of business and allocate work to different ministries. The governor sets rules that explain how government work will be divided among the different ministries. Like he divides ministries among like creating departments. He gives specific responsibilities to the ministers, and he makes sure that everyone knows who does what. For example, one minister might handle education, while another may handle health. This division is made through rules of business set under the governor's authority. Though the rules of business and standing allocation orders, the governor may delegate any of his executive powers except those actions which are exercised by him at his discretion to his ministers. Governor also appoints the chief ministers and council of ministers of the state. He also appoints the advocate general of the state. Advocate general is a part of a state executive, and the state election commissioner and the chairman and members of state public service commission. The governor also acts as the chancellor of universities in the state and appoints the vice chancellors of universities in the state. So these are the executive powers of the governor. Now let's look into the legislative powers. The Constitution of India, Provision 168, lays down that the governor is an integral part of the state legislature. In some states, the state legislature consists of governor and only one house, which is the legislative assembly. Whereas in some other states, it consists of governor and two other chambers known as legislative assembly and legislative council, which is known as bicameral legislature. At present, 6 states of India have bicameral legislature. 2 northern states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, which has 2 houses, and 4 states in the southern India. They are Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. So basically, bicameral legislature is a system of government in which the legislature consists of 2 houses, which are upper house and lower house. Upper house is the state legislative council or Vidhan Parishad, and lower house is the state legislative assembly or Vidhan Sabha. The governor possesses the power to summon and prorogue the houses of the state legislature, and he can also dissolve the house before the expiring of its term. He can only dissolve the lower house, which is the state legislative assembly, but he cannot dissolve the upper house. The governor has been authorized by the Constitution to deliver an address to the state legislature at the commencement of the first session of after each general election. First session after each general election means in such while addressing such session, the Council of Ministers, they can give a list or a letter to the governor, like what will be their motto and what are they going to do in their term. And the governor will address this in his speech on the first session of after each general election. And he also addresses the first session of each year. The each year in this sentence means the budget session, not the beginning of any year which starts from January 1st. The each year here means the beginning of the budget session, which will be addressed by the governor. And the governor has to nominate 1/6 of the members of the state legislative council. This 1/6 will not be equal across the country because the size of the legislative council differs from state to state. Hence, this 1/6 also differs from state to state based on the size of the legislative councils. And this 1/6 members of the state legislative council will be nominated from amongst the persons having special knowledge in science, art, literature, or who has done some cooperative movements and has a special knowledge in social sciences. Such people will be nominated in this 1/6 members of the state legislative council by the governor. Previously, the governor also used to nominate one member to the state legislative assembly from Anglo-Indian community. However, it was removed by the 104th Constitutional Amendment Act because it is believed that Anglo-Indians are getting enough representation at both center and the state. And hence, this provision was removed both for the president to appoint two members from Anglo-Indian community in the Lok Sabha and one Anglo-Indian in the state assembly by the governor. This was basically removed by the 104th Constitutional Amendment Act. But this provision will be still seen in many old Lakshmikants. So you can just strike it off because that was removed by 104th Constitutional Amendment Act. And the governor can appoint any member of the state legislative assembly to preside over its proceedings when the offices of both speaker and the deputy speaker falls vacant. If the offices of both speaker and deputy speaker falls vacant, maybe let's say maybe they died or they resigned and then there's a vacancy. And in such scenarios, the governor can appoint any member from the state legislative assembly to preside over its proceedings until the house chooses another speaker. The governor also decides on the question of qualification of members of the state legislature in consultation with the Election Commission. And one of the most important legislative powers of the governor is issuance of ordinance. The Constitution of India, it gives the governor a special power to make laws temporarily through something called an ordinance. So this is like a temporary power given to the governor to make an ordinance. This will only be allowed only in emergency situations when the state legislature is not in the session. So what is an ordinance? An ordinance is a temporary law made by the governor when the state assembly is not meeting, which means when it is not in session. It is meant to deal with any urgent situations or emergency situations which needs an immediate action. And there's no time to wait for the legislature to come back into the session and pass a regular law. In such cases, governor passes an ordinance. He makes a temporary law. According to Article 213, Clause 1 of the Constitution, the governor can issue an ordinance only when One or both the houses of the state legislature in states with two with which consists of bicameral legislature, that is two houses. If one or both of those houses are not in session, the governor can issue an ordinance. And there is a situation that needs immediate action, immediate attention, and cannot wait for the legislature to reconvene. In such cases, the governor can issue an ordinance. So, how powerful is an ordinance? Under Article 213, Clause 2, once the governor issues an ordinance, it has the same effect as a law made by the state legislature. But this power is temporary and comes with some conditions. The ordinance must be presented before the state legislature once it starts its next session. So basically, this ordinance would be issued by the governor in the absence of state legislature. But when the state legislature comes back into its session in the next session, then this ordinance must be presented before the state legislature. If the legislature approves it, then the ordinance will become a permanent law, or else it will be a temporary law. If the legislature does not approve it or pass a resolution rejecting it, the ordinance will stop being effective from that date. So, can the governor cancel the ordinance? Yes, the governor can take back or withdraw the ordinance at any time, even before the legislature discusses it. This gives the governor the flexibility in managing the law if things change. And we also have veto powers. Sorry, it's governor. I accidentally wrote president. So, when a bill is presented to the governor, he has four options. First, he passes the bill and he withholds the bill, or he can send the bill for reconsideration to the legislature, or he can reserve the bill for the assent of the president. If he passes the bill, in that case, the bill will become an act. If he signs and says, I'm passing the bill, then it will become an act. If he withholds the bill, his assent, if he withholds his assent, then the bill will not become an act. This is nothing but the pocket veto of the governor. The governor can exercise the pocket veto over the bill, or he can send the bill for the reconsideration to the state legislature. If the governor feels that the bill is violating any constitutional principles, or if it is not in the interest of larger masses, it means if the public is protesting on something, if the state legislature, and then if it is not in interest of the larger masses, then the bill can be sent back to the state legislature. If the state legislature amends or decides that the governor's opinion need not to be taken into consideration, then it won't make changes. If the bill is sent back to the state legislature, it has two options. It either amends or makes some changes as said by the governor, or it can say the governor's opinion doesn't matter. I mean, we did not take into consideration the opinion of the governor, and they won't make any changes. And if the state legislature passes this bill back with amendment or without amendment, the governor must sign in this case. This time he won't have any choice to withhold. He has to give his assent and he must sign. Or he can reserve the bill for the assent of the president. If the governor feels that certain bill should be sent to the president for his assent, then the governor can reserve such bill or send that bill to the president. Now let's look into the financial powers of the governor. The governor is not only the head of the state, but also plays an important role in managing the state's finances. His financial powers are clearly stated in the Constitution and help in keeping control over how money is spent and how money is collected in the state. The financial powers and functions of the state governor are: firstly, presentation of state budget. The governor ensures that the state budget, which is also known as annual financial statement, which is actually known as annual financial statement, is presented before the state legislature every year. The budget includes how much money the government plans to spend and how it is planning to raise funds, like how it is planning to collect taxes or loans or etc. This is one of the most important responsibilities of the governor in the financial process. Permission needed for financial matters. The legislature cannot discuss any proposal related to spending money or increasing taxes without the governor's prior approval. This means that no new financial policy or tax can be introduced just like that. It has to go through the governor first. It ensures discipline in financial decisions and avoids careless or political misuse of funds. Money bills and governor's role. A money bill deals only with taxes, loans, spending of government money, etc. Such a bill can be introduced in the state legislature only with the governor's permission. This gives the governor strong control over any law related to the state finances. And demand for grants. A demand for grant is when a department asks the government for money to run its programs, like education department or health department. They ask money to the government to run its own programs in their own departments. Those are known as demand for grants. These requests can only be made based on the governor's recommendation. This means that without the governor's go ahead, the state government cannot approve spending money for any department or program. And contingency fund of the state. The contingency fund is like an emergency money reserve with the governor. This fund will be used when there's an unexpected expense, like maybe there's a natural disaster or maybe an urgent repair, etc. The governor can use money from this fund, which is contingency fund of state, without waiting for the legislature approval. It allows quick action in emergencies when time is too short to wait for the legislative procedures. State Finance Commission. The Constitution gives the governor the power to set up a state finance commission every 5 years. This commission reviews the financial condition of panchayats and municipalities. Panchayats are the village level local bodies, and municipalities are the town or city level bodies. The commission suggests how money should be shared between the state government and local bodies so that the local areas get enough funds for development. Judicial powers. The governor of a state is not only a political head, but also holds certain judicial or legal related powers. These powers allow the governors to intervene in certain legal matters, especially related to punishment and appointments in state's judicial system. Firstly, power to grant pardons and reduce sentences under Article 161. The governor has the authority to reduce, cancel, or change a punishment given by a court for offenses under state laws. This includes pardon. Pardon means completely forgiving the punishment. And reprieve. Reprieve is a temporary delay of punishment. And we have respite, which means reducing the degree of punishment. It can be due to like age or health issues. They reduce the degree of punishment. And we have remission. Remission means cutting down the period of the sentence without changing its nature. The nature will be same, but the sentence will be reduced. And commute. Commute means changing the type of punishment, like from death sentence to life imprisonment. And then we have suspension. It means stopping the punishment for a while. These powers apply only to offenses related to the state laws, not central laws or military laws. In case of central and military laws, the power will be with the president, not the governor. The governor only looks after the offenses related to the state laws. He only has the powers apply only to the offenses related to the state laws. The difference between Article 161, which is of the governor, and Article 72, the president. The president of India and the governor both have powers to pardon, but they are not exactly the same. For example, the jurisdiction of governor would be only limited to the offenses under the state laws, whereas the jurisdiction of the president would be on the offenses under the central laws. And in case of death sentence, the governor cannot pardon the death sentence. Only the president can pardon. This is also one of the major difference between the president and the governor, his judicial powers, and also the military court punishment. The governor has no powers regarding the military court punishment. Only the president can pardon military punishments. So we can say that the president has broader powers, especially over the death penalties and court martial cases, which the governor cannot even touch. He has no say in those things. Only the president can take a decision. Governor's role in appointment of High Court judges, which is under Article 217. While the High Court judges are appointed by the President of India, the governor of the concerned state is consulted before the appointment. This is to ensure that the person being appointed is suitable and acceptable to the state government too. And we have appointments and promotions of district judges. The governor appoints district judges, but this is not done alone. He has to consult the state high court before making any such decision on appointments or transfers or even promotions. This ensures that the judiciary has a say and this ensures that the judiciary has a say and political misuse is avoided. Appointments in the state judicial service. The governor appoints lower level judges and court staff in the state. These appointments are done in consultation with the state high court and the state public service commission. This makes the process fair and balanced, involving both legal and administrative sides. And the appointment of Advocate General under Article 165. The Advocate General is the highest law officer of the state, just like the Attorney General at the national level. Advocate General, his main responsibility is to defend the state government. He basically, when there's a dispute between like various states or any kind of issues between center and state, in such cases, the Advocate General, he defends the states and the governor appoints the Advocate General. He's also part of the state executive. This person gives legal advice to the state government and can even represent the state in the High Court or the Supreme Court. Now let's switch into the discretionary powers of the governor. Discretion means when the governor acts on his own or takes decision on his own without the aid and advice of the chief minister and the council of ministers. Article 163 of the Constitution says that the governor can act using his own judgment, which is discretion, in certain situations where he is not bound to follow the advice of the state's council of ministers. This means the governor becomes sole decision maker in those matters. The following points can be discussed as discretionary powers. Firstly, appointment of a chief minister. When elections are held and a new government has been formed, the governor has the responsibility of appointing the chief minister. If a single party wins the clear majority, the governor simply invites the leader of that party to become the chief minister. But when no party gets a majority, the governor has to use his own judgment to decide who is most likely to form a stable government. He might choose a leader who has the support of many MLAs or a coalition of parties. This decision is one of the most important discretionary power because it can affect the political future of the state. And secondly, dismissal of chief minister and the council of ministers. If the chief minister loses the majority in the legislative assembly, the governor can dismiss the chief minister and entire council of ministers. This is usually done when government cannot prove its majority and still tries to stay in power. The governor does not need to wait for the advice and can act on his own to protect the constitution. And the dismissal of minister or council of ministers. In rare situations, the governor may choose to remove any individual minister or the whole council of ministers, especially if they are acting against the law or misusing their power. This is also a discretionary decision, but it is used very carefully and only in serious cases. Prorogation of legislature. The governor has the power to prorogue. Prorogue means ending a session of the state legislature. This is usually done on the advice of the council of ministers, but in some situations, the governor may act on his own judgment, especially during political crises or conflicts. Summoning of the House. The governor can call, summon means calling a session of the state legislative assembly. Normally, this is done based on the recommendation of the government. However, in special cases, like when there's a confusion about who holds the majority, the governor can summon the House on his own to test the majority of a government. Dissolution of assembly. The governor has the power to dissolve the legislative assembly, which leads to the fresh elections in the state. This is generally done at the end of the assembly's term or when a government collapses and no alternative is possible. In certain situations, the governor may use his discretion to dissolve the assembly early if it is clear that no party or coalition can form a stable government. Reservation bills for reconsideration by the President, Article 200 and 201. If the state legislature passes a bill and the governor feels that the bill violates the constitution or deals with the matters that president should examine, he can reserve the bill for the president's review. The governor is not obliged to approve every bill passed by the state assembly. This power is very important because it acts as a safeguard against unconstitutional laws. Governors assent to bills and returning of bills to the House. Once a bill is passed by the state legislature, the governor has several options. He can give his assent and then the bill becomes a law, or he can withhold the assent, meaning he does not approve the bill, or he can return the bill to the assembly for reconsideration unless it is a money bill. Money bill cannot be sent back for the reconsideration. The governor can make this decision on his own, especially if he thinks that the bill is a problematic or needs more discussion. Governor's address. At the beginning of the first session of the year or after a new assembly is elected, the governor addresses the legislature. This address is generally written by the state government, but the governor can refuse to read it or change its content in exceptional situation. This rarely happens, but it shows that governor's power to stand apart from the advice of the government when needed. And seeking information. The governor also has the power to ask the chief minister or council of ministers for any information. related to the working of the state government. If the governor feels something is not right, he can seek a report or details. He does not need anyone's permission to do this. It's his constitutional right. The governor and the president rule. When there is a political instability or a breakdown of governance in a state, the governor can send a report to the president recommending president's rule. Based on this report, the central government may remove the state government and take control temporarily. This is very powerful and sensitive decision, and the governor acts on his own discretion while making such a report. Allegations against his functioning, against governor's functioning. The office of the governor has been part of India's political system for over 65 years. Governors are important because they represent the central government in each state and are responsible for making key functions. For many key functions, they are responsible for many key functions. However, over time, many people have criticized the way some governors have performed their duties. There are several situations in which people have raised questions and made allegations against the governors. Allegations against the governor's functioning have arisen in the following circumstances. Firstly, appointment to the chief minister and assent to the bills and imposition of president's rule. Appointment of chief minister. One of the most important jobs of a governor is to appoint the chief minister of the state. This is usually a simple task when no political party wins a clear majority in the state election. The leader of that party, if there's a clear majority, the leader of that party is invited to become the chief minister. In case of a clear majority, there's no confusion. But sometimes no party wins a clear majority. And several parties may try to form the government together. In such cases, the governor has to decide who should be invited to form the government. This can be tricky because the governor has to guess who really has the support of the most members of the legislative assemblies. But sometimes these decisions have been challenged by opposition parties who feel that the governor favored one group over another. That's why people often accuse the governor of being biased or helping a particular political party. To avoid such criticisms, governors have started asking new chief minister to prove majority support in the assembly within a few days by taking a vote of confidence. This means the leader must show that most MLAs are on their side. This process brings more transparency and reduces political disputes. And secondly, assent to bills. Another important power of governor is to approve bills passed by the state legislative assembly. After the assembly passes a bill, it is sent to the governor for his signature called assent. Only after the governor signs the bill, it becomes a law. But the problem is there is no deadline or time limit mentioned in the constitution for the governor to act. That means a governor can delay a bill for weeks, months, or even forever by simply just not signing it. If the governor does not agree with the contents of the bill, he can delay it without giving any clear reason. This has led to the frustration and criticism. People have demanded that the constitution should be changed so that governors are required to take action within a fixed time. This would prevent unnecessary delays and make the process more fair. At present, a deadline is mentioned only when the governor returns the bill to the assembly for reconsideration. But if he just keeps it without doing anything, there is no rule stopping him. And imposition of president's rule. The third situation where governors are often criticized is when they recommend the imposition of president's rule in the state. According to Article 365 of the Constitution, if the president, based on the governor's report, the president feels that the state government is not functioning according to the Constitution, president's rule can be applied.
This means the state government will be dismissed and the central government will take over the administration of the state temporarily. But here's the problem. The constitution does not clearly say what kind of situations count as a failure of constitutional machinery. In other words, there is no clear list of reasons for when the president's rule can or should be imposed. This vagueness has often been misused. Sometimes the governors have recommended president's rule just because a party lost majority or because of political instability. Critics say that this power is sometimes used to help the ruling party at the center, especially when it wants to remove an opposition party's government in the state. This has led to many controversies and legal battles, with public demanding better rules and stronger checks to prevent the misuse of this power. In all the situations mentioned above, appointing chief ministers, approving bills, and recommending president's rule, the action of some governors have raised some serious concerns, and people have said that some governors act more like a political agents of the central government instead of being neutral and fair. There are also complaints that governor's office is being misused. Often people who are loyal to the ruling party at the center, often people who are loyal to the ruling party at the center or retired bureaucrats or defeated politicians, such people are generally appointed as governors. This has weakened the image of the governor, turning them into a mere rubber stamp or tool to serve the central government's interests in the state. Many experts and commissions like Sarkaria Commission have recommended changes. They say that the chief minister of the state should be consulted before appointing a governor to make the process more balanced and fair. Position and role of the governor. The governor occupies a prominent position in the state government. He has twofold responsibilities and powers. Accountability to the president. He is accountable to the president of India by whom he was appointed. And secondly, role in the state government. Along with the accountability to the president, he has to exercise his powers and functions in accordance with the advice of the State Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister. So he maintains the regular and periodical contacts with the real executive heads at the central and the state governments. The governor plays an important role in promoting the welfare and development of the people of the state. He is expected to fulfill various responsibilities as outlined in the Constitution. One of his key roles is to ensure that ministers and administrative authorities they function effectively and free from political pressure and always within the framework of constitutional principles and democratic values. While striving for the overall progress of the state, the governor must stay away from active political involvement. He should be neutral. He should not show any kind of enthusiasm or initiative in political matters. Therefore, individuals appointed to this governor post should possess qualities such as secular outlook, commitment to human values, personal integrity, rational thinking, and wisdom. A governor must treat both the ruling party and the opposition with equal respect and concern. He should also be self aware, recognizing both his strengths and limitations, and aim to win the respect and trust of the people. Supreme Court stand on the governor's role. In a landmark judgment on May 7th, 2010, in case of Union Government versus BP Singhal, the Supreme Court of India clarified the position of the governor. It stated that the governor must act within the boundaries of the Constitution. While he is an agent of the Union government, he is not expected to blindly follow the political directions of the central leadership. The court further emphasized that the removal of governors should only happen in rare cases and not arbitrarily. The Sarkaria Commission, after examining the tenure of 154 governors between 1947 and 1986, found that 104 governors did not complete their full term of 5 years. This indicates that there's an instability in the position, and it raises concerns about political interference in appointments and removal. The role of governors in many states has led to intense public and political debate. Critics argue that office has been often used as a reward for political loyalty, which is given to defeated politicians, retired bureaucrats, or individuals with strong political connections. This has weakened the institution, reducing the governor to just a mere ceremonial head or a political tool at the center. These governors are generally failed politicians or retired politicians. Moreover, the union government often fails to consult the respective state governments before appointing a governor. This lack of coordination results in appointments based more on political influence than merit or neutrality. As a result, many now view governor's office as a safe haven or political asylum for individuals who are no longer active in political mainstream. Several commission and experts have recommended that the chief minister of the concerned state must be consulted before finalizing a governor's appointment. In today's coalition politics, where governments are often formed by alliances, it is even more important that the governor's powers be exercised in a rational and unbiased manner. Some general guidelines about the governors. Keeping in view the importance assigned to the position of governors, there is a need for clear guidelines regarding their selection, transfer, and removal. The Sarkaria Commission has examined these aspects at broader level and submitted its recommendations in 1988. However, these suggestions have largely been ignored over the years. Now let us have a glance at the recommendations made by the Sarkaria Commission. The selection of the governors at present is made from a wide range of backgrounds such as retired civil servants, military personnel, politicians, etc. But the Sarkaria Commission has suggested that a person to be appointed as a governor should satisfy this criteria. Firstly, he should be an eminent person. The governor should be respected and a well-known person. The governor should be someone with a strong reputation. This means someone who had made a significant contributions in their field, like maybe academics, administration, law, or public service, and must be widely respected. The role requires dignity and neutrality so that he stands as an ideal person, like an model person or inspirational or someone of a high stature. Person from outside state. He must be a person from outside of the state. To ensure impartiality, the Sarkaria Commission recommended appointing someone who doesn't belong to or have close ties with the state. This reduces the chances of governor being influenced by local politics or personal interests, and it helps maintain objectivity in functioning and no active participation in politics. He must not have participated in active politics at least for some time before his appointment. While political experience is not entirely discouraged, the individual should have distanced themselves from active political roles while for becoming a governor. This gap helps ensure that they act fairly and not in favor of any political party or agenda. He should also be a detached person. He should not be too intimately connected with local politics of the state. The governor should be someone who can remain neutral and not be involved or influenced by the regional political functions or issues. This detachment helps in maintaining the dignity and constitutional nature of the office. Appointment in consultation with Chief Minister, Vice President, and Speaker. He should be appointed in consultation with the Chief Minister of the state, Vice President of India, and Speaker of Lok Sabha. To make the process more democratic and fair, the Sarkaria Commission has suggested involving multiple leaders in the appointment process. Consulting these high-ranking officials helps avoid arbitrary appointments and builds trust between the state and the center. He should be allowed to complete his full term with job protection. The governor should be allowed to work for his full tenure. At present, his services do not enjoy the protection which is given to the government servants under Article 311. Governors can currently be removed without much justification, which undermines their independence. The commission proposed that governors should be protected from arbitrary removal and allowed to serve their full 5-year term unless there is a valid reason for dismissal and a fair process for his appointment, transfer, or removal. A, a transparent and fair system is needed for appointing, transferring, or removing governors. This ensures that they focus on their duties without feeling the need to please the central government for job security. So these are some guidelines given by the Sarkaria Commission. And in tomorrow's class, let's discuss Chief Minister and his Council of Ministers. If you have any doubts, please ask me. Okay, then thank you all. See you all tomorrow.